Right. Hello again, guys. Let's get to adding
Daniel,
some.
you are mute again, I guess.
Am I muted again?
No.
Hello, hello.
Okay. No, you are all good.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry.
cool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. All right. So let's get to adding some logic to make our product filters and search and things work. So your first hint here was that you could actually use this syntax here for filtering products inside of Contentful. Okay. So essentially what you're doing is you're targeting the fields. So which field do I want to sort by? That is the, all the custom ones you set up, the name, the price, and all this, right? Because there's metadata in Contentful too that you could target, but we're targeting those fields that we set up. But then there's also the precise field. Okay, so let's actually give that a try. Let's just hard code this directly inside of where we're calling the products here from Contentful. So here I am inside of product store.js. Okay, I'm inside of the fetch products method. And by the way, I have checked out branch 3-start. Okay, and if you did the same thing, you'll be looking at this exact same thing. Okay, so in here, inside of my get entries function, which comes from the Contentful SDK, I'm going to add this fields heat level hot. Okay, so this is a filter. And so now I should only see my hot sauces. Okay, my hottest hot sauces. I don't know how to say that. All right, so now let's give the page a refresh here. And sure enough, now I only have my hot sauces with the 3 fires on them. Okay, I could change this out to mild as well and give my page a refresh. And now I'm only looking at my mild hot sauces. Okay, so super simple how this actually works in Contentful. So one way you can actually see the request in that Contentful's making. So the first time around, when you first load up this page, Nuxt is making this request on the server side because it's server rendering this page. This is where we get that SEO benefit that I talked about a few minutes ago. But if I go into my heartbeat hot sauce here and refresh the page, okay, now Nuxt has server rendered this page. But when I go back to my index page, to my home page, you'll see that everything happens on the client side. So I'll be able to get a peek at the network request that's actually made to Contentful this way. So I'm going to go back to my home page, okay? And here inside of my network tab, you can see, let's see, we can go to headers. You can see we've made a request, cdn.contentful.com/blah, blah, blah, all this stuff. And sure enough, right here, you can see product, nope, you can see fields. So we got and fields.heat level equals mild. So that's what that filter is actually doing. That's how it's changing the request to Contentful. All right, so let's just close that. And then we want to make this actually come from the filter on the page, right? Instead of hard coding this in here. So what existed in the boilerplate code here is some filters inside of our product store. Okay. And you can see this fields.heat level filter already exists. Okay. So essentially I'm keeping up with all the filters that we want to apply to our products at this product store level so that no matter when we request all of our products, the filters will be applied appropriately and globally. Okay. So let's say that we want our filter or fields.heat level here inside of filters to pass into this here. Okay. So we can access that via this dot. And you'll notice all the wonderful auto completion I get here. This is the beauty of using, one of the good things about using Pinia. We get some awesome auto completion. So we say this dot filters, okay, and because of the nature of the filter, I have to use the square brackets, right, because it has a dot in it. But I still get the auto completion for that. Still get the auto completion. Super cool. So I'll just select that. Okay. And now when I go and refresh my page, okay, now I should have all my hot sauces back, and I do. But that's because this is blank. So if I were to put mild in here now, okay, and refresh the page, yeah, now I've got just my mild one again. So let's dynamically change this fields.heat level here in the filters. So that's really as simple as, let's see, over here in, give me 1 second and make sure I stay on task. Okay, over here in product filters.vue, what we have set up is a V model on our filter select. Okay, so this is a just a regular old HTML select. All right, and we've got a V model saying anytime this. Too many pop-ups showing up, guys. I'm sorry. I need to change my settings there. So anytime anytime this select changes, we want filters heat level to change as well. Okay, and so you'll see here that filters is coming from the product store.filters. And here we are using product store. So Eduardo will go into this a little bit more in the next lesson, but essentially this is the way we initiate or initialize our store, our product store, our Pinia store. So we say we want to use it, okay? And then we want to target the filters on it. And that filters then is just a computed prop. And so now we can do the V model on our filters. And actually at this point, everything should be working with our controls. So let's test it out. Okay. So now if I do filter by heat and we'll choose mild, it looks like something's not quite working. Let's see if I've got a console error, and maybe I am missing something, guys. So we've still got, let me see. So we got V model is filters fields dot heat level. And we got fields.heat level here. And we've got this. Oh, right. So I need to actually rerun fetch products whenever this changes. So whenever our fields.heat level changes, we need to rerun fetch products. Okay. So let's do that like this. We can watch all of our filters. So using just a regular old watch function in Vue, we can watch our filters. Okay. And by the way, we don't have to import this because Nuxt auto imports it for us. Okay. And we can say whenever those filters change, let's just rerun product store dot fetch products. Okay. All right. So let's go back now to the page and we'll change it to mild, and still no dice there. So let's see if it made the, it did not make the request. And the reason why is because filters is an object. Okay. So back here in product store, we have filters. And when you watch an object, if you want to see changes if you want to react to changes on the properties of each of those objects, you need to use the deep option for watch. Okay. So here we can say deep, and see, notice that auto completion there for me. It's like, yeah, deep is an option. Super cool. Okay. So this is the cool thing about TypeScript in Nuxt. And you actually don't even have to be using TypeScript. Just the things that are just the composables, the functions that you're using are defined in TypeScript. And so that they have these awesome autocomplete features for you. Okay. So now we're watching deep true. Let's try it one more time. So now I've got medium, and perfect. There we go. So now I've got medium sauces showing. I've got mild sauces showing. I've got hot sauces showing, and we are living it up. All right. So let's go on now to make the order by work. Okay. Right now, this is remaking the request, right? Okay. So if I clear out my network tab and then change this, yeah, you can see the request is sent again because we're watching, remember, we're watching all the filters. So we need to say this time, I don't want to just send this filter, this fields.heat level filter to Contentful. I also want to send the order to Contentful and the query to Contentful as well. Which, by the way, guys, the way I came across these little keys here for what I should send, these are just going to end up in the URL that we send to Contentful, right? It's going to end up in that URL for the API request. The way I got those was over here in the content delivery API documentation. You can see that we have a order, okay? And this says you can use the following fill types with the order parameter. That's not what I want. See, you can order items in the response by specifying the order search parameter, okay? So order is the keyword that I want to use. And so order is what I added here. And that is what is ultimately going to be sent to the Contentful platform via the SDK here. All right, so instead of just hard coding them all out one by one here, I could just spread this dot filters into get entries. Okay. All right, so this is essentially the same as listing this one out and then listing order, blah blah blah. Okay, instead I'm just spreading them all out together at one time. Okay? And so yeah, now that we have order and query defined here, and we've got order and query already hooked up to the form controls here. So here's order by, right? It's got a V model on filters.order. Sweet. So that will change, and that will trigger our watch. We have filters.heat level. Yep, we already looked at that one. And then we also have a V model on the search input. So those are going to change these filters. And therefore, because we have a watch on those filters, we're going to refetch their products every time. And because we are spreading this dot filters into our request to Contentful, all those filters will be automatically applied. Okay, so every request we make will get those filters. All right, let's just give the page a refresh here for good measure, because ultimately I came from Laravel and PHP, and I refresh maybe too much for the JavaScript world, but it just makes me feel comfortable inside sometimes. All right, so our mild still working, perfect. Our order by heat it looks like it's working. Cool. So we've got a 1 here, we've got a 2 here, we've got the 3s down here. Perfect. Let's order by price, low to high. So I've got a $6.99 one here, I've got $11.99 one here, and everything in between is looking sweet. So some of you might be asking yourself, since you're ordering by heat, why didn't you set the actual values for those different heat fields as in like using numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, so that you can order those better, right? Well, it was actually kind of a happy accident, and it worked out very well for this, that mild, medium, and hot just alphabetically already sort as as I'd like them to. So if you wanted to support other names for your heats, that might not be the best approach. It might be better in the long run to provide number values for your heat levels. But this just happened to work out, and it was already working, so I didn't change it. All right, so let's check out search now. Okay, so under search, if I start typing in bacon, perfect, we've got our bacon hot sauce. All right, so I believe that is all for that first step there. And our next step is to support adding the filters as URL query parameters so that they can be shared. Awesome. So with the setup we've got and the way we're watching things, this is actually going to be a super simple process. So what I want to do now is over here in product store, okay, in product store, we're initializing we're initializing our filters to blank on the load of the page, right? Okay. What if instead we can initialize them to whatever's in the query string? Well, we actually can do that, and it's really pretty simple. Okay. The way we can do that is if we actually I have it commented out here. So we can access Vue router and the current route via the use route composable. Okay. This is documented inside of the Vue router docs. Nuxt auto imports it for us. So we can say use route. And that'll give us the route that you're probably used to getting with this $route inside of a component. Okay. And then we can just say, instead of initializing the fills.heat level to nothing, instead initialize it to route.query, because remember we want to store those in the query string like this. Okay. We want to store it in the query string, so we're targeting route.query. Okay. Dot. And we can't use the dot because we are using this strange kind of fields.heat level syntax here. Okay. Because I had the dot in it, I couldn't do dot so-and-so. All right. So now that should be coming from our URL. And then we can do the same thing for order and query. So I can say route.query.order. And I just like to name all these the same thing. It just keeps things simple. So in the query, it'll be order on our actual app. And to Contentful, it'll be order. So it just makes things a little bit more transparent there. Now you'll notice, without even realizing it, I set a fallback here. And that's just in case route.query.order, whoops, that should be query. That's just in case route.query.query does not exist. Okay, so I want to do the same thing for all these as well. All right, and I need a comma here. And let's test things out in the browser now. So I'll refresh my page. Oh, and we have broken things. Let's see what I did wrong. Search 0. Let me see. Why did that send search 0? Let me do this. Let me go to, okay, I am on, oh, I want to get a products page /products. I want to see that network request, okay? All right. So here inside of network, I want to go back to awesome sauce and see, now I can see that request. This is important. This is what I want to get. So now it says, oh, heat level is 0 and order is 0 and query is 0. That is definitely not what I want because I can't write JavaScript. So this should be the double pipe because we're saying or this, right? So this is what happens when you're coding live in front of people. You forget how to code. All right, so let's refresh the page. Now all is right in the world again. Okay, we can filter by heat. Let's do hot. And now, oh, in the URL, I don't have anything because I haven't set that piece up. But let me just manually put it inside of the URL here so you guys can see. Let's say we're going to do the order, and we want to order by, actually, let me do the search. I think that's the easiest one for me to type off the top of my head. So if this is too small and you can't see, I've got question mark query equals bacon. And I'm going to hit enter. Okay, perfect. So now you can see that Rocky's Bacon Hot Sauce is the only one that shows. Okay, so that means that these filters inside of product store are in fact being initialized. They're starting out their value from the URL query parameters. Awesome. So now let's make it to where whenever we change one of these things, whenever we make a change here, we update the URL so that we get that shareable URL automatically. All right. So how do we do that? Well, we're already watching. Let's see. We're already watching filters and refreshing them whenever they change. Why not just change the URL whenever the filters change? Okay, makes sense. Let's say here then, once again, we want to use route, right? And actually this time we don't. We want to use router, because use router gets you access to the Vue router, and that's going to allow us to push new URLs to our location history. So I can actually just use router here. I don't even have to set it to a temporary variable and then start working on it. I could just start working on it directly, which is pretty cool. I saw this not too long ago and I was like, why haven't I been doing that? So I could say use router dot push. And now what I want to push is, what do I want to push? Let me make sure I get this right. 1 second, guys. I just messed up one live coding. Let me make sure I don't waste too much more time here. So I'm watching. Oh, it's not in there. Where did it go? Here we go. Yes. Okay. So I want to, in my router, I want to push a new route, a new location here. And we're going to say the new location is going to be with the query of filters.value. Okay. So essentially just add all of my filters as they are here into the URLs query. Okay. One really nice thing about working with Vue Router is that you can work with the query string as an object. Okay. And that's what we're doing here. And we're saying .value here because filters is a computed prop. And with the composition API, you have to access the value of a computed prop with the .value. Okay. All right. So let's save that. And then let me just remove that, refresh my page here. And then whenever I change this, perfect. Now we've got heat level equals mild in the URL, no order, and no query. And then over here, I could sort, I could sort one item. Sure, why not? And I can sort, and you can see here now we have order is fields.price. So we're telling Contentful now order by the price field, right? All right. So that takes care of making that shareable URL, right? Because now I can, let me just search bacon here because bacon is everybody's favorite. And I will copy this and paste it into a new tab. And sure enough, yeah, this is what you expect. That's that shareable URL I was talking about. We see only what we saw here. Okay. All right. So for bonus number 1 and bonus number 2, I'm not sure how long I've been working on this, guys. You kind of do that when you're coding. Anu, could you tell me how much time I have left? Are we getting close to break time? I think we are. I know we were a little bit behind, and my clock is telling me this is probably about time to stop. All right, so I won't go through the bonus portions, but the solutions for those are inside of the. Let me show you here. The solution is right here. You have the start in comparison. Okay, at the bottom of the exercise document, it says solution, and you have start in comparison. And right here, you'll be.
Hey, hi, Daniel.
Hey.
So you still have 10 minutes. So yeah, you're
I
good.
still have 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's do the animation then, because those are a lot of fun. All right. So don't look at this, y'all. Close your eyes. So what we want to do now to get the animation working, well, first, what you might want to do, if you're a responsible developer, is you might want to get add everything and then get commit, right? Because we're at a good working point. But that's beside the point. Now we want to get those animations working. So inside of index.view, okay, and we're looking at our pages here. Okay, these are our product cards, right? This is, so let's say hello world right here, just so we can see where we're at. Back here, yeah, we got hello world. So this is the right spot, okay? We are printing out those product cards. Now, in order to make a a transition in Vue.js for a group of elements. So something that's being iterated over, like a loop, right? Like we have here, v_for. There is a transition component built into Vue, but there's also a transition group component. So is it transition group? Yes, it is transition group. So right here, I will use transition group, and I will wrap product card in my transition group. Okay. Now out of the box, this isn't going to do anything at all. So if I come back over here to the browser and then get rid of this and start sorting again, nothing is happening. Okay. But if you were really super fast at watching things, you'd be able to see that each of these items gets a little class added to it when I change things. Okay. So boop. I've got mild here, and actually it's maybe the wrapper. Is it the wrapper? I didn't see it. It might just be too fast for me to see. But what's going on is that Vue adds some classes under the hood to help you during certain times of a transition. Okay, it adds a class before the transition starts. It adds a class right before the transition starts. It adds a class right after the beginning of the transition is over, and then the same thing for the end as well. So to be honest, I am not super good at the transitions in Vue. So what I like to do is exactly like what I did in the exercise document. So I like to go find inspiration out there and then take their styles, right? I like to take the transitions they use and repurpose them for my own use case. And so that's exactly what I did here. I took this awesome Vue.js animation here, and as you can see, they're doing this nice little fancy thing here. And inside of this their CSS, we have those classes I was just talking about. So you've got projects enter, leave to, leave active. All right. And these are those classes that we want to kind of hook into to make our style. So I'm going to paste those into here. Okay. So we'll have our style section down here, and yep. So the first thing we're doing is we are saying we want the transitions for all of these product cards to have an ease out, and we want it to last half a second. That's just to make things a little smoother, right? And then on enter from, okay, we want to scale all of our cards down 5%, and then translate them over on the screen to, that's not over, that's up on the screen, 80 pixels, right? Negative 80 would be up. Okay, and so this is what it's starting out from in the interface. And then on the leave phase, we want to move them over or move them down all 30 pixels. Okay, and then we just want to position them absolutely so that they move correctly. Okay, and so if you can tell, I I grab transitions from other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can too, right? So let's now add the one thing we have left to do is we have to change this. So this prefix here on the enter from, the leave to, the leave active. Okay, this prefix is going to have to correspond to a name on the transition group. Okay, so now we've got that in place. And let me give the page a refresh here, and let's see where we're at. So, oh, awesome. We said medium earlier, and it's still there. Cool. So now I'll say mild. Sweet. Now we're getting some fancy transitions going on. And it really wasn't a whole lot of work. Like, my process for this was literally Google, Vue.js transitions and find one I liked. And then kind of pick through how they did it and use the code in my own code base. And you can do the same thing. Awesome. All right. I know that didn't quite take 10 minutes. Let's really quickly see if we can tackle some of bonus number 2. So let's add a loading indicator for slower connections when the products are filtered, sorted, or searched. And the reason I want to do this, you know what, maybe I'll just show you the reason and stop there, and then I'll let you figure out the rest on your own, because I want to eat lunch. So let's take, all right, so let's say that we're on a slower connection, right? And we can simulate that inside of the network tab. Here under presets, I could say I've got a slow 3G connection, which really stinks. Whoops. So now when I filter, okay, we've got mild, but man, I'm still seeing hots, and yeah, it took just way too long for me to actually know. Yeah, I thought things were broken, right? So this is a really quick and easy way you can simulate those different connection types to help provide a better user experience for people on slower networks or slower devices. But ultimately, you could end up using a loading indicator there. But yeah, I think that's just about our time, and I really appreciate you guys sticking around.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Daniel. It was so much fun to see all those coding.
Thanks.
Yeah. So we have multiple questions. So
Okay.
and there are so many, how many questions? So maybe I will just keep the screen on. Let's see. So I have a question on how to filter by multiple fields.
Okay, that is a good question. I believe you could add as many as you wanted inside of, let's see here. That's not the one I wanted to do. You know what? Let's do this. Let's try this. We could go into here and say fields dot name. I think that's what we gave to it. And then we could say the bacon, whatever. That's not realistic filter, but if you get the idea. I think you can just add more. And as far as Contentful is concerned, you can just add more fields dot whatever, and then it would take both into account. I think that's the way, but don't quote me. I'm not like a Contentful power user or anything, but I think that's how it works.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Someone wants to know, can you show how to filter but in price rather than heat level hot?
Filter as but in price rather than heat level. Okay, cool. So you know what? Let's do this. Let's open up that relational queries doc one more time, and this is the one I'm looking for. So yeah, you can see here that they are using multiple filters. So what I just mentioned, I think should totally work. But let's see if we can do something other than equals, right? We want to say price under X, right? Let's see, is that possible? I don't see that that's possible through this doc, but I bet if you searched through some of the other Contentful docs, you might be able to do that. But yeah,
Okay,
that's where I'll leave you with that one.
cool. Okay, so next question is, how does V model set a new value for computed object, and does it have an auto setter in Pinia?
Does it have an auto setter in Pinia? No, I think I think the idea here is that, let's see, I know what you're talking about. And to be honest, to begin with, it was a happy accident for me. Let's see, we're looking for product filters. What they're talking about is right here, filters is in fact a computed value, which really shouldn't be editable, right? Like you should only be able to read from that. So down here, we're reading from it to get the initial value of the query for that input, but we're writing back to it when we edit, when we make updates to this input. So I think what's going on, and I think what's going on is because I am returning the entire filters object here as the object, and it's actually because it's an object and it's referenced by what's the word I'm looking for? It's accessed by reference and not by value. We actually are getting that change. And so that might be actually something you can refactor and make a little bit better. That actually might end up causing a bug. I'm not sure, but I think that's what's going on there. But you're right. Computed typically doesn't actually, act as a setter unless you specifically set it. So, yeah, that's what's going on.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, similar to like const, if we have a const object, still we can update the values of that object because it's by
Yes.
reference. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So we have another question with V model. Could you run a method on the V model instead of using watch?
Yes, absolutely. It was just easier to consolidate them all and make them kind of work together with watch instead of having to individually do something different on each one.
Okay. And yeah, this question, like for the search field, are we making the request on each keystroke?
Yes, that is an excellent question. So right now, with the solution I gave you, yes, we are. But in the exercise doc here, you can see part of the bonus number 2 here. It's actually using ref debounced. That's not what I was doing there. So you can actually use, you could import watch debounced, I believe it is, from at Vue use. Okay, I think it's watch debounced. Is it debounced? Having trouble finding it. I think it's debounced watch. Oh, there it is. Yep. Okay, so debounced watched. You could use this instead of watched, and then pass a debounce value here. So then it'll debounce every 500 milliseconds, and at that point, you are no longer making the request on every keystroke for the search, and that would work great too.
Yeah, and that would be better for performance too.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. I think this next question is very similar. Will that make a server request on each keystroke or each filter?
Yes, yes, same thing.
Yeah, so like we are doing currently on keystroke, but yeah, you can enhance it like Daniel mentioned and yeah, debounce the request.
Yep.
And we have another question. Is this a problem querying from client where we expose our access token in the header? Was there a
Mm,
problem? Okay.
is there a problem querying from the client where expose our access token? I assume that's referring to the access token for Contentful, which, as mentioned earlier by Brittany, those are meant to be public. They're going to show up in the browser. So no, there's no issue there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for answering that. Another question is, if there is no pagination, is it better to filter on the client side without making a request to the server?
That is a good question. You absolutely could, and it just depends ultimately on how many kind of products you want to support, or if this was some other application, how many of that resource you wanted to support. When it comes to filtering and sorting and things like that, I I typically just I refer to delegate that to my backend because it is more scalable in the long run. But also, usually the backend already has that worked out in terms of like a database, right? Like there's queries you can write to the database, and the backend's already doing that. And so instead of having to manually filter things in JavaScript on the front end, which is perfectly fine, you can do that. But a lot of times it's just easier to make the request to the backend because they've already got something like that set up, just like Contentful already had something set up, and that's going to be more scalable in the long run. Because if that does become a long list of products, yes, you do want to eventually paginate them.
Thank you. We'll take this last question, which is I think you mentioned about ref debounce. So, what are some other use cases for ref debounced?
Okay. Yes. So ref debounced, I mentioned that is in here in bonus number 2. We didn't actually get to get to that, but it's a lot like watch debounce, except that you're debouncing a ref in particular. So like if you change a ref, um, you could say don't actually see the ref as have changed if it changes within this small time frame, right, over and over again. The best use case I've found for it, to be honest, I don't have too many other use cases, but the best use case I've found is to display loading icons, because for people with faster connections, like when you just get that little flash of a loading icon, it's like, why, right? It's just maybe a little disorienting. It's just not a great user experience. So ref to bounce can make it to where the super fast connections see nothing at all, no loading in icon at all, but the slower ones still get the loading icon after 500 milliseconds or whatever.
Yeah, that is a very practical use case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for taking all these questions and answering them, and as well as this super nice coding session. Daniel, it was super helpful, and I hope the audience learned a lot. And now, before moving ahead, we will be playing a Mighty Bits. But before that, again, thank you so much, Daniel.
Thanks.